So now it's freaking about damn time, right? It is about damn time. And one thing I want to comment on is it really struck me from the survey that we did that only 8% of you have ambitions to become a CEO. And I'm not sure if that's desire or doubt. I hope it's not doubt. Because I see you, I see the work you're doing. Part of the survey questions where I actually put CEO duties, I looked up what a CEO does, and that's how we plotted how you spend your time. And if you're doing those market things, and even the in-between things, and even some of the if you're out there doing those things, those were all CEO duties. And so, in the words of RBG, women should be in all the places decisions get made. And hey, I know it's not easy. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next session. But my father-in-law has a saying. He always says, Latny, everyone is going through something all the time. And we all might look like we have our shit together. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But I bet to the woman out there, we've all been through some crazy shit. And that's one of the reasons that I think it's about damn time. And I was so excited for us to find Arlen and for Christine to lead this session. So let's bring them on stage. Christine, Arlen, it's about damn time.
Hello, hello.
Hey everyone, hi Arlen, and thank you Latny for the introduction. Very glad to be here today. I've gotten to know many of you, of course, in the audience over the years as customers of Allocadia at our Empowered Napa events, and I'm just really thrilled to be hosting another session today with all of you. As we've had in the past, we've had just a ton of learning, inspiration, motivation, and I know that our next guest speaker here, Arlen, will definitely provide that in spades. She's got a very inspirational story. And in addition to that, I know, and our hope through this is that we can take this inspiration to take action and give back in our community and into underrepresented groups. And as Arlen will definitely share with us, underestimated groups, as she calls it. And one thing I know about this community here is that you all love to give.
Oh, I think we may have lost her.
And just excited to get started. So thank you, Arlen, for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me. Very happy to be here. I think your video went out for a second, for me at least. So, but you're back. You're back.
Oh, I'm back. I'm not sure why that's cutting out. I haven't had that all day. So of course, right when we're here, but Arlen, thank you for joining us. I will share a little bit of your bio and then we'll jump into our session.
Sure.
So Arlen Hamilton is the founder and managing partner of Backstage Capital, a venture capital firm dedicated to minimizing funding disparities in tech by investing in high potential founders who are people of color, women, and or LGBTQ. And the story of this former music tour manager studied up on investing from her home in Texas and pushed her way into the world of venture capital has become legendary in the industry. So started in 2015, Backstage has now raised more than 12 million and invested in more than 150 startup companies led by underestimated founders. In 2018, they launched a 4-city accelerator program. And Arlen is the author of It's About Damn Time, an inspirational and tactical business book for budding entrepreneurs and aspiring investors. And she is the host of the popular podcast, Our First Million. So this is, of course, a near and dear subject to my heart and my experience, Arlen. So we're really happy to have you here today.
Thank you again for having me.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's start off. We would love to hear just a little bit of your background. Tell us your story and what prompted you to start Backstage Capital.
Sure. I'm going to make here something that can fixed at all? Maybe I'll turn down my sound. Okay, it's fixed. Oh my goodness, it's like
Oh,
magic.
there you go. Yes, that's better.
That's
Okay,
like
perfect.
magic. Somebody get that behind the scenes. So yeah, I just turned 40. Actually, I'm very excited about that. I just turned 40. For about a decade, have been working on trying to change the disparities and how much capital is going to essentially 2011 or so. I just looked from afar, like you said, it was in Texas. I looked from afar from a very different industry, and I saw that this really awesome place called Silicon Valley and beyond that had the potential to be super innovative and super have a level playing field for everyone was mostly being funded to white men. So 90% of venture funding at the time, and almost to the same amount, unfortunately, today goes to white men. And they make up a third of the country. And that doesn't make any sense, right? Because everybody here in this audience knows that they are just as valuable, and it doesn't make logical sense. So I was looking at it more like, wow, like that's a business opportunity missed. Like as a gay Black woman, I was upset. I won't lie. I was mad about it. It didn't make any sense in that way. And I was hurt and disappointed. But it also said, wait a second, there's so many women who are doing things. There's so many Black people who are doing things, and Latinx people, et cetera, LGBTQ. What if there was someone who that's all they invested in? And they really were bullish on it, and it wasn't philanthropic. What if it were Sharkey and for profit? And that's when I got on this this path that has turned into what I consider a calling.
Well, that's amazing. And what strikes me about your story then is that when you did this, and I know a lot of our audience members, our CMOs, they often have, whether it's a new strategy or a new idea or a new campaign, and something that's never been done before. And you had that courage to step out there and do something that was never, ever done before. Where did that come from? Do you think that's just built into your DNA? Is that something that's learned? What gives you that confidence to go forward?
I think it's a mixture. My mother will tell you that from a very, very young age, I was speaking up for myself and for other people, almost kind of embarrassingly sometimes. in department stores where my mother wasn't getting the best service, I would let them know that, and I was like 5. So I've always had this very strong sense of self. And I think that does come from having my mother as a role model. Although she was very much more introverted than I am, I just saw her leading by example, and she had such grace and dignity that was part of who she was and who she is. And I also think it comes from the fact that I called it a calling earlier, and I think it's because I had for so long chased dreams and kind of went forward after things. And this really just caught me and wouldn't let go. And it felt like everything else I had done leading up to it was leading me kind of into this destiny. And so when you have that, and when you have so many founders who you see on a daily basis, who aren't getting funded, who are brilliant, and a lot of cases are already generating revenue. I mean, to me, the writing was on the wall. It was just, I didn't even have to discover it. It was just there. And so that drove me. I guess the bottom line is that I knew I was right. And so it just didn't, like in this case, I knew I was right. So I couldn't not do it.
Well, there you go. Maybe there's something about being a bit of a daydreamer. I've always said I'm a bit of a daydreamer, and it was something, starting a company and having this idea of something that didn't exist before. It was something that was always ingrained in me too. And I knew I just had to go and do that. Yeah. I also took a lot of inspiration from my mom. So there you go. There's some good role models in our lives. But okay, well, I mean, my guess is that a lot of women in this session here have been the only person in the room. And they likely have been underestimated because of this. One of our sessions last year, our wonderful CMO here, Jackie Yini, shared her amazing story of joining the Air Force in a sea of men. And it was a very good story of strength and perseverance. Can you tell us a bit more about how you approach these situations when you're the only person in the room and how you turn that into your greatest advantage?
Yes, I mean, definitely don't want to be the only one in the room. I don't want to be the only Black person in the room or the only woman in any given room, especially ones where decisions are being made, like you said before, or like Latney said before. But when I am, I give myself the same advice I've given others, which is I bring others with me emotionally and mentally into the room. One thing that I do, not only just saying I have my ancestors and I have my, the people who believe in me in the room with me, but I think about all of the doors. I call it loosening the pickle jar for somebody else. You know, so that's how I even go into negotiation sometimes. I'm like, okay, even if I don't get a yes, even if you can look at it, even if I don't get this job promotion or this extra cash, what if I loosen the pickle jar for the next woman who comes behind? And really taking that into the room, along with other kind of little hacks that I have for myself, makes me stand up straight and no matter what the outcome is, know that I'm okay in those rooms. And it does take a great deal of confidence and self-awareness and self just believing in yourself. And I know it's not the easiest to come by, especially when you've had years and years and years of people telling you maybe, or signaling to you that maybe you're less than. But I got to tell you something. We can no longer be encumbered by imposter syndrome. That's wasting our time. We have a lot of time to make up for as women. And so we kind of have to put that to the side and just break through that.
Yeah. Well, you're making me think then of something in your book where when you say you're telling yourself that you're ascending an escalator in a hotel I couldn't afford to stay in. And I said to myself, you are a venture capitalist. You are a venture capitalist. I had no home, no money, and certainly no investment capital. Yet I knew that that's what I had to say to myself. And I find that interesting when you're saying, right, we don't have that room to be like that. I find when I started Allocating, before I had customers, a product, a team, I would say, I am the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
I am the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
I still find I do these things. The other day I put a Post-it note on my screen that said, I am a deal maker. I've done 3 deals before and I'm doing a 4th deal and I'm getting into that mode.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, is this a good thing? Do we want to tell ourselves these things? And you're saying too, we have to move beyond that, right? Is it also a sign of what's wrong that we sort of keep having to affirm what these roles are and who we are?
Yeah, I think. Oh, there's that echo again. Is there any way to fix it? I get really thrown off.
I know, so do I. I can't hear the echo. Is the audience okay?
It just started again. I think it's gone again. Yeah, I think
that's the worst. It is the worst.
I think it's not necessarily. I mean, you're asking 2 questions, and they're really good questions. And the question about, like, is it a problem that we have to keep finding, going to this well within ourselves to keep and going to each other and saying you're okay and you're worthy? Yeah, that's a problem. It is a systemic problem. But these are the circumstances, and we can either let the circumstances sort of dictate what we are doing and how we react, and just say, yeah, you're right. These 100 or so years that each of us get on this earth and this body, we're just going to listen to what everybody else has kind of preordained for us, and that's what we're going to do. Or we can stop at any age, at any point, and say, wait a second, why? The same curiosity you had as a child. Why? Let's ask that now. And I think, I mean, I certainly haven't invented any of this envisioning things, vision board or anything like that. But that reaffirming, sometimes you have to be your own coach. Like you said you had that on your wall. What I had from 2016 to 2018 on my whiteboard in permanent ink was just 2 words: keep going! ! Mm-hmm. I had to look up at it every once in a while. to say, even though I had raised a little bit of capital, even though I then started investing money and then eventually was on the cover of a magazine, really had done a lot in a 3 or 4 year period, you still get that. What happens between the Instagram posts, right? What's all that stuff we have to go through? And the more we can just say, let our former and our future selves coach us, I think better.
Yeah. Well, then this takes me, you were also sharing that, right, in order to become, you had to be. And I think that's what you're talking about right there, is sort of that bridge between the, convincing, sort of saying to ourselves, we are this person, and because we don't see it around us. But then as long as that doesn't stop you, right? As long as you go take action, you go do that next step. I love that little sort of mantra you have. And this is part of, I did a session last year, and some of the group here knows I'll speak to this, and a bit of my passion, it's around creating confidence and building confidence. And we talked about the way you do that is through taking action, right? That is how you go and build that. So I'm hearing that from you when you share that. There's a reality for why we feel that way, but as long as it doesn't stop us, and the more that we go forward, the more that we are accomplishing those big dreams, those big missions that we want to do. So I love it. That totally makes sense. That's very much my experience also. And you did mention confidence, so I do have to ask a question around that. You mentioned in your book around a confidence check for entrepreneurs. The first one being a confidence check. Can you just talk a little bit about that and why you feel that that's so important, especially in this group of underestimated people?
And by confidence check, I mean money. So not checkbook, but money.
Yes.
Because if you did the math and you heard the intro, you heard about 12 million, 150 companies, only 2% of what we've seen, by the way. Then you say, okay, those are nice checks, but they're probably less than 100K each, right? Yes. Yeah. But usually they're either the first check in, or they're the check that keeps the company going lest they fall. And a lot of times, when I was learning about venture capital, I was learning about Silicon Valley, I would hear things like from men mostly, and they would say, yeah, I had a tough summer, and I had put together a friends and family round, and we put together $500,000, and it was touch and go there for a minute. And I'm looking around like, friends and family, I need to find some more interesting friends, because, where is that coming from? And so having that 25K from us in 2016 or 17 may not have been the 2.5 million they ended up raising, but it set them on that path. And we have just really great evidence of that. If we have a documentary at backstagecapital.com that people can check out later, where 3 or 4 different founders talk about us being that confidence check. And I had a confidence check. Susan Kimberlin in 2015 gave me $25,000 when I was living at the airport. And I took it from there and took it to this. And I've talked to millionaires and billionaires, but I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the time Holly Laveau came in and gave us the first investment for Backstage Studio. These things will never go away, no matter how many millions we raise in the future.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I know we want to talk about, turning that into some action that this group can take to help. So clearly one of the ways to help is as you invest, and you've done that, you've invested in founders and given that first check and that confidence check, and so much can come from that. I've certainly experienced the benefits of what that can do and bring. If you could share with us, so there's an amazing group of CMO women leaders here. I know they want to give back, they want to help. Perhaps speak about what are some different ways that they can help support these groups, And why does it matter from a business perspective too? Why does giving back here,
Yeah.
how does it?
Well, I want to reframe it just slightly how this is presented. Yes, in a lot of ways, what I do is supportive, but I am actually grateful to the founders for letting me be on the ride. I do not look at it as a philanthropic effort, because we're talking about backing companies that are good for healthcare, for sustainability, climate crisis, infrastructure, et cetera. Not just that one founder getting a helping hand. And so I think there's a really cool opportunity to do a mixture, like a hybrid of, yes, you are being very supportive in the earliest stages. And like you said, how important that is, the earliest stages. But when we're talking about underrepresented founders, make no mistake, that means white women too. It is all of us. We're in this together. And it is important that your voice is heard. It is important that the voices of the women listening, no matter what their background or profile is, their voices are heard. And so there are people right now, like in our portfolio, who are building incredible companies, and some of them are beauty products, and some of them are entertainment, and they all have their merit. I think I've talked to a few people who kind of come from money, and a lot of times they come from money, and maybe their husband has more money than they do, and kind of they think of themselves as what I do with philanthropy is kind of what I do to give back to the world and to invest in the future that I want to see. Well, I counter that and say actually investing in startups is one more thing to add to your portfolio. And what it's called really is impact investing. I know several people would be already familiar with that, but it's this hybrid of doing good for the world by backing people who have been underestimated and have been held back in many ways, but also putting that capital to work towards, I think of it like you want that capital to come back into return so that you can kind of have an evergreen fund to then put that money back to work. Because when you do philanthropic efforts, the money it's gone. Yeah. And so it's great to have this little sliver, I think, where it's invested, and yes, the returns that you get over the few years goes right back out. I think that's what I do with, now that I have money. That's what I do personally.
Well, that's great. And this audience is a group of CMO. We've just spent some time talking about market strategy, category strategy, how do we grow businesses, stories of IPO. And this group is super passionate about business. This is what we love to do. And so how can we bring these things together? I've heard you talk about just that exponential effect we can have too when we have more companies, more successful companies, and different types of people starting different types of companies, and having their voices heard. So it's just a wonderful combination where this group can absolutely help. And certainly there's executives here that absolutely can put their investments and money into this. And see what that can return. But on that note, then, so I would love to hear from you, and this is my CEO and founder hat. What is your secret sauce for choosing a successful company and a successful entrepreneur? Especially if we're saying that is one of the ways that our CMOs can participate and help. But yeah, how do you choose?
I think it can feel overwhelming, especially if this is not your day job. It can feel overwhelming, and so that's why I will mention we have a syndicate at BackstageCrowd.com where we do all the vetting and we showcase some of the deals that we're investing in, and then people can put in $1,000 here and there and build a portfolio. So it's really exciting. There is a secret sauce, but I don't know it. I don't know how to articulate it, and I wish I did, because everybody would line up for that exact thing. But it is an X factor thing, especially in early stage. So we invest in the pre-seed and seed stages, which is it's post idea, we need to see some traction. We need to see just have belief that people want what you're offering. And if you can have some metrics of revenue and customer use and coming, active customers coming back, returning, that's even better, whether it's B2B or B2C. But at this early stage, I still have to bet on the founder and the founding team and the people that the founder has been able to attract.
Right.
And that is why it's more art than science. The more later stage you get, I guess you could say the more information that you have, you can make these more sure bets, and maybe the returns aren't as high, but they're more steady and more kind of tried and true. That, although our fund will probably, and it has actually, it's gone that way, it's gone later and later stage as we've grown with the founders. While my fund and firm will be able to do that, I think I'm always going to stay early. So we may have, for instance, $100 million fund one day, which I know we will. And somebody will be like, on a spreadsheet figuring stuff out later stage, but I'm still going to be going to those quick competitions and checking out the founders, seeing what their vision of the future is. One metric that I use, or one kind of hack that I've started using as I've gotten a little bit older, is saying, would it take me 10 years or more to dominate what they're doing, to learn it, and then to dominate their field? And if it would take me more than 10 years, I don't want to do that. So I have that entrepreneur hat on all the time as an investor. I don't want to do that, but I do want to live vicariously through that founder, because that founder is probably very visionary. So that is like a way to look at it as you all start to really put together your own portfolio, and knowing that you've seen huge companies that look great on paper just fall. We've seen that over the past couple of years. You've seen companies that look crazy on paper. Who would have thought Airbnb would make any sense, right? Do really well. So it's really about, what do you want the world to look like in X number of years? And how can you wield your power, really, that you do have, whether you realize it or not?
I was just thinking what Latny wrote here in the panel. That's exactly, it's category design. That's exactly it. What is their passion to create something and have that vision and the experience or their background to do that? So I mean, that's wonderful. That sounds like there is an opportunity, if anyone's interested in the audience, to learn more about Backstage, and if they want to go into investing and have a slightly additive orientation to what that could look like, then they can come and talk, which is really exciting, I guess. And I can see the counter here for a few minutes. I guess, I mean, what I'd like to share, because we all want to be thoughtful around how we participate here. Is there anything you would share with this audience where you feel that women in positions of power would do something different in the community? Like anything we should be aware of, to watch for, to be aware of, to sort of avoid that you see a bit too much of going on out there that's counterproductive?
Yeah, I mean, I would be kind of inauthentic if I didn't really speak to this year in particular. I'm making all kinds of assumptions right now by thinking that this room may skew white women, and I skew that way. Obviously not all, but I will say that because I think you all have, no matter what your profile is, you all are at the helm of some of these big companies where you can kind of foster change yourself. My challenge to you would be kind of going back to this whole theme of really recognizing that you do have power.
Right.
And you may feel very much like you don't, and feel like that's someone else's job or that's someone else's fight, because how could I just be so powerful? Well, I told the story of Susan Kimberlin being that first check. I called her the first yes for Backstage. She was the first yes for us. And what has that yielded? It has yielded 150 companies invested in, about a $500 million raised on top of what we have invested by the ecosystem, about 1,000 jobs created, all in 5-year period.
Yeah.
She said yes at $25,000. And imagine if she had thought herself to be not worthy of making such a decision. And what if she was so worried about being wrong, or stepping out? You know, it almost makes me emotional thinking about it. What would have happened if she hadn't done that? So I think, not to be too self-helpy, but I think if my ask, if I had one, would be to really work on yourself so that you can be strong for the ecosystem. And you don't have to think of this as this huge mountain to climb, or this huge, you have to announce, well, I'm doing this big foundation and this, and that. It can just be you're at a meeting at your company, you hear someone who you feel is slightly less privileged than you, because someone is slightly more privileged than you in the room. Someone who's slightly less privileged tried to speak up and didn't get heard. Do you then say, excuse me, I'm going to be brave and say, excuse me, I think she was trying to talk. I think she had something to say, because she, in her mind, is feeling less. Those small things added up create incredible change. And I bet all of us can think of a time somebody was nice to us, and it was the right day at the right time. They were nice to us or helped us in the right way, and it changed everything for us. And it was small. So it's a ripple effect.
It's the true sort of sponsorship and, speaking out or doing something for someone. And I love that. And it's amazing that you spoke about power. We opened up today with that conversation. There was a woman who has participated in the Fortune's Women's Most Powerful list, and people didn't like that word, and they didn't want that word. And I think it's really important to embrace just the positive too that can bring, right? That you can make that difference, and you can make those changes, and you can participate, and it can have that ripple effect. So that's amazing. And I've loved to hear your story and just your courage to go out and do that and make a big difference, and business impact. I want to, that's
Yeah, sure.
what I love. We are at time here, and I'm going to look at my host here because it's an amazing segue, your story here, into what we want to do as a breakout is to be sharing with each other just our own stories of our first yes. So anyone that has given us our first yes, what did that feel like? What impact did that have? And then some examples of also a first yes that we could give. So perhaps a little commitment or promise to a first yes that we can do for someone in our world right now, and take that action from today. So I see here we all have a little confidence check. So I'm on the logistics. I just wanted to say a big thank you, Arlen, for sharing your story and for joining us today. I think this was just a really amazing way for us to have to be closing our day and have a session. It was wonderful to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate everybody here.
Yeah. Thank you.